Hi, welcome to my art studio. My name is Laurel, and today I'm going to teach you how to paint a self-portrait using acrylic paint. Normally I would bring you through the start to finish process in one video, but self-portraits take a lot of time. So I'm going to show you how to plot out the underpainting. So whether you're here for some relaxation and ASMR tingles, or you're here to learn a thing or two about art, you came to the right place. The first thing you're gonna need is a canvas, water. I have my jar of water, my pickle jar here, your acrylic paints, and paintbrushes. Don't get too hung up on the little details of, like, oh, if you are maybe using slightly different paint or a slightly different canvas size. Don't worry about that. Oh, the other thing you need, I almost forgot. You're gonna need a picture of yourself. So make sure you have one that you feel confident about. And I recommend choosing one that has a strong light structure, meaning lots of lights and darks. I'll show you the reference image I'm using. Here she is. So, as you can tell, it's black and white. I recommend turning your image to black and white so that we can create a light structure similar to your image. Then we'll add color. That will be the next lesson. So I'm excited. All right, I have my reference image on this little stand, but if you want to hold yours, that's fine too. Whatever works. You can also use a mirror. That's definitely the most traditional way to go about a self-portrait. But with the use of photography, I think it's really good to be able to see it on a 2D surface, because it's easier to bring something from 2D to 2D than it is from 3D, live observation, to 2D, the painting. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Grab your paintbrush and let's get started. We're going to start out with black, and I'm going to use very broad brush strokes. And I am also going to think of everything as an architectural structure. I'm going to think of everything as this architectural structure, looking at the large shapes, not the small shapes yet. And remember, you can always paint over your painting, so don't worry about it being perfect. We're going to use large, big brush strokes, and we're going to feel our way through. We're going to try to get everything on the canvas first before we hyperfixate on details. All right. I'm dipping my paintbrush in water as well because this is the underpainting. So instead of going straight into the face, I'm actually going to divide my canvas into almost a grid. I'm looking at what is behind the head, and in this case, it's a door. This is the line of the shoulders, and I'm basically making a grid for where my head is going to go on the canvas. I'm looking at the angle of the shoulders, and I'm breaking everything into big shapes. I'm also looking at the negative space. What is negative space? That's a good question. Thank you for asking. It's the space around what it is you think you're painting. So if you're looking at me, the negative space is everything around my face. It's the background. So do you see how this divider behind me is cutting through the image and hitting here on my shoulder? Do you see that? I don't know if you can. And then you can see these paintings are kind of hitting on certain points in my face. That's what we're trying to do. We're looking at the background and lining up the background so that the face and the body feels anchored. So the head is gonna go somewhere in here. I have my hair pulled back in this image, so that's something I'm gonna keep in mind. And the face is gonna go in here. I'm realizing that the shoulders are much lower than I thought. Feel free to move things around. Here's the ear. My head is tilted, so I'm going to create the curvature of my jawline right here. I may refer to it as her, like her being like, oh, the girl in the image. Sometimes I might refer to her as me, or my face, my head, it's weird and trippy when you're doing like self-portraits. So all right, I am wearing a sash in this image around my chest, and so I'm going to plot that in. And instead of thinking of like outlining everything, I'm thinking of filling it in, filling in that structure. The sash goes around and kind of comes down here. If you're following along, this is a good time to plot in the shoulders and the fabric around the face and the head. This is a little bit more of an advanced lesson because it's a self-portrait, so your self-portrait is going to be different than mine, but watching me make mine and me explaining my thought process will give you something to go off of. All right, so the light is coming from the left. Over here is where it's shaded. So I'm going to take my black and mix it with white, or mixing my black with water to make different shades of gray. My favorite joke, to make 50 shades of gray. So here's a nice dark shade on the wall, which then connects with the hair. And over here is my face. Now the eyes, what we're going to do is we're going to plot out lines where the nose, the eyes, and the mouth will go. So typically the eyes are in the middle of the head. So here's the line that the eyes will go, and I'm using my paintbrush as a way to gauge the line angle by holding it up to my image and just kind of closing one eye, and then that way I can really see what the angle is. And I'm realizing it's a stronger angle than I thought, so it's going to be more like that. The eyes are going to go somewhere in there. This is more of like the eyebrow space. And see, it's somewhere in this area. Let the beginning of your painting be messy and wild and sketchy, because because you're literally trying to feel out in this massive plane of white space where everything goes. So it's not easy. Shading over here and just trying to feel out the angle of the nose. How much space is between the eye and the nose, the tip of the nose? That's something I'm keeping in mind. Don't worry at first about making it look like you. Just worry about placement. Typically the eyes are as wide as the mouth, strangely. So those are some proportions you can keep in mind. Here's the little philtrum and the mouth. I like to start with the opening of the mouth whenever I'm drawing it. And then kind of indicate the lips. Try to navigate the space between the nose and the lips. Let's fill this in. And here's the shadow on the neck. There's a little bit more space in here than what I accounted for. And right now, in this beginning stage of the painting, we're really focused on getting as many shades from the black and water and the light of the canvas as possible before we introduce any of the other colors. Okay. Here's shadow on the shoulder. One of my helpful tips is it's basically like the whole way through the painting process, you're going to be leaving notes to self. So when you travel through that part of the painting again, you see what you were trying to do. And in that, you develop it further. But you're going to pass through every part of this painting a jillion times. Okay, so it's not like, oh, you develop the eye and you move on to the other eye. I know that that's how a lot of social media influencers, artists navigate their paintings, but I encourage you to try it this way. I'm an art school graduate. I focus on painting. I have taken numerous figure drawing courses, and this is what I got in debt for, basically. So you're getting this for free. You're welcome. All right. So, I'm going to take more black paint and I'm going to increase the shadows and make the darks darker. This is good. Behind her is, behind the head, it's a little bit gray, so I'm gonna plot in the grayness around the face so that whenever I paint the light, it's coming out of the grayness. That's making me realize that this over here needs to be darker because I'm comparing the dark part to the part that I just added. So continue to adjust everything as you go. And look at how dark one thing is compared to another thing, because right now we're adding the value structure and we're plotting out where the form exists within the space. Okay. I'm going to make the hair darker, and I'm looking at it as a shape. It's pulled back, so it's almost like it's a moon around my head, but a dark moon. And I have these curls that are kind of coming out, and up here is a nice bun. I'm making the lips a little bit darker in a few places. It's okay to bounce around. Create that structure, put the structure back in. Some of the grid-like aspect of the painting got lost as I deepened it, so I'm adding the grooves on the door behind me back in, to feel out how much space is actually back there. Don't forget to use your side to side. Don't forget to use your side to side brush strokes. It's normal to paint like this. Don't forget to paint like this. My art teacher always told me that children paint up and down. You don't have to teach a child to paint up and down, but you have to learn to paint side to side, and that's what actually creates the width of whatever it is you're painting. Okay, so as we're creating darker darks, we're able to make the light a little bit more nuanced in here. Let's make this a bit darker, creating the shape of everything. Here's the eye, which it might be off at the moment, but very soon I'm going to show you a trick on how to make it look better. Yeah, I can tell that the eye is very off. Very, very off, but that's okay. Without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and create more tones by introducing white into the painting. We've been using black paint and water, so once you feel like you can't really pull much out of what you have, it might be time to add white, because white is going to create it's going to help you create more tones of gray in your painting. Do you have any plans for this weekend? Well, make it comfy. You can always hang out with me, no matter what. Okay. So here's my white, adding it in to the cheek area and the forehead, just moving it into where I would see the skin tone, where the skin tone is lighter, where it's hitting the light. As you can see, the paint is kind of sheer, but that's okay. We'll build it up as we go. She looks creepy, but it's getting somewhere. Actually, I think a lot of artists give up way before they should, because the painting will likely look like a dog dookie for hours. It takes an absorbent amount of time investment to actually be happy with your painting. So it's okay if you hate it. I hate it too. We're getting there. Okay. So as you fill in the space, you might realize, oh, I need to adjust the hairline. I need to adjust this or that. So that's the whole point. There's some hair that's falling around the face. In here, it's kind of a gray tone, so I'm just gonna push the gray into the black and then take my black and push it back in to the gray. And honestly, the whole way through the painting, you're gonna be hopefully making incremental adjustments. Again, it's not start to finish like many things in life are. It's circular, not linear. So you're going to be working all through the painting the whole way through. All right. Let's work on the eye. I'm looking at the angle, and I'm going to try to make it accurate. Here's the eyebrow. Creating a stronger shadow on the side where the light is dark. On the shaded side, on the right side. I'm looking out of the corner of my eye, so making sure that I keep that in mind. And I have on eyeshadow and the whole shebang. I'm not gonna develop any one part of the painting, including the eye, until I make for gosh darn sure that everything is plotted out where it needs to be. Because the worst thing in the world is whenever you work really, really hard on something and you realize after you finished that thing, like say the eye, and you realize that it's in the wrong location. That's the worst. This is how you prevent that. You save developing the painting. You make it all come up at once so you can make incremental shifts all along the way. This is how you make paintings and portraits look like that person. But you can't rush it. I'm realizing there needs to be more space between the jaw and the mouth. Again, looking at the negative space. So the space around what it is you think you're drawing. Our eyes tend to go to the outline, which is really where there's the most contrast in whatever it is that you're looking at. In reality, there is no outline to anything. Everything is three-dimensional. My hand, my hair. When you're painting, you can't think of it as an outline. Think of it as painting through something. You're painting in between. And I have bruises. I don't know if you noticed, but I have a bruise here, and I have a bruise on my hand because I tripped over my dog, basically. So that was the other day whenever I tripped, and it was a little bit traumatic, but we're both okay. So that's all that matters. Okay, so since I'm realizing this needs to be wider, I'm gonna make a shade of gray, a light shade of gray, and paint in between to thicken the bone structure. I'm looking at where does my jaw align with my neck. And I'm realizing that there needs to be more width to my face, just in general. So I'm going to make sure that it's as wide as it needs to be. It's natural to kind of close everything in and to shrink things. Paint outside your borders that you created for yourself. You see how I created a line here and I'm painting outside of that? That's how you deepen your painting and how you make it look better over time and develop it. Because your painting should go through an evolution. As you work on it, it becomes closer and closer to this defined, realized subject. So it's a good thing. Now I'm gonna reiterate this shadow, figuring out where does this shadow line up with the mouth. The mouth is way smaller than it needs to be. We'll work on it more later. The neck needs to come all the way up here. I'm gonna add some more thick paint. And honestly, you might wonder, is this gonna be a black and white painting? And there's a chance that I'm gonna keep it black and white, but my goal is actually to add color over the black and white, but I want to make sure I have the light structure intact before I try to match the light structure with my chosen color. So it's not like I'm going to paint the entire painting right away, but and then cover it up, but I'm going to make sure that I have the light structure, which means the shapes of the shadows, and I have everything. Basically, this is a deeper idea. It's like a better way to outline something. Okay. So I'm realizing I'm not focused down here as much as I probably could be, so bringing some of my attention to the lower portion of my canvas, painting the direction that these scarves that I wrapped my chest with And then I've got one this way. I have a pattern on the scarves. Here's my shoulders. See how I'm plotting out thick shapes. And I'm realizing that see again, this is my reference image. I have a little bit more space around my face and the hair than on my canvas, so I'm gonna actually crop this in to match a little bit closer to what I'm painting on my canvas. Okay, see how I cropped it in and I made it a little bit bigger. Okay, make sure you try to match the aspect ratio, so the overall shape of your canvas, make sure that matches your picture, and feel free to crop. Once you get it on the canvas, you might be like, wait, this is a little bit zoomed out, or this is zoomed in. But I think for portraits, it's best if it feels zoomed in. Like, make it bigger than you think you need to, because in the process of adjusting it, it likely will shrink, if that makes sense. That's why I said constantly try to expand it, because as you paint, it likely will shrink. I'm gonna take a little break. I will be back in just 1 minute, so hang tight. Okay, I'm back. Let's keep working on this bad boy. What do you say? Cool. Okay. So, I worked on it a little bit. Now I'm gonna flip it upside down. This is a great point in the painting process to flip both your reference and your painting upside down. Why, you ask? Well, that's a good question. It's basically because it forces your brain to see it differently, and really that's the name of the game. To see differently, to see deeper, to increase your observation skills. The skill is not in your hand, it's in your eyesight and your comprehension of what it is that you're seeing. So, go ahead and flip your reference and your painting. I recommend doing it fully upside down. Yes, you can do it sideways too, but I recommend fully upside down. Okay. And hopefully you're gonna immediately see some things that you could fix and change in your painting. I'm going back to my black, and I'm creating a more determined shadow on now the left side because it's upside down. But normally it would be the right side. It gets confusing. It's like, is it my left? Is it your left? Look. My paintbrush is falling apart. So don't leave your paintbrushes in the water, because that's what'll happen. The glue will start to come off. So don't do that. Don't do what I do. Okay. Now taking the white and making this sash a little more prominent as it goes over the shoulder. And here as well. There's a pattern that is emerging within the folds, which happens to be peacock feathers. So I'm plotting in where approximately those peacock feathers are. Almost like creating little spots, like polka dots. After adding in the white, which honestly I feel like it might be time for me to put this aside, because that's driving me nuts. I'm gonna rinse it off. And I'm gonna grab, oh Lord, right whenever I rinsed it off, it fell into my paint. Okay, I'm just gonna retire this brush for now, and I will likely get some Gorilla Glue and glue it up later. So for now, let's choose a similar brush. Let's go with this one. It's a little bit newer, as you can tell. And if you're wondering where I get things like this, I got this at Savers, but I'm always keeping my eye out for cute things to hold my paintbrushes and my paint itself. So I have these little baskets, shower holders, you know. This is probably for kitchen utensils. I find that those are great for holding your brushes and your paints. So that's a little helpful tip. Okay. Let's try to stay focused. Alright, so there's a hair curl that's connected to the neck and to the shawl, or to the scarf. Again, in this image, I have a scarf wrapped around my chest. It's a little bit sheer, and I find that fabrics like wrapped around and draped for photo shoots can look so timeless. So if you're planning ahead for this portrait, consider draping linens, sheets, scarves around yourself. There's something about it that looks very old world, like almost Victorian or something. So even if you have tulle, that's a good one to wrap around. So yeah, and I think you can do that regardless of your gender. It'll, like, if you're more masculine presenting, do something wrapped around maybe the lower portion. You're gonna look like a Greek god, you know? I'll leave it here. Okay. I'm looking at the shape that my hair creates. And I'm not totally defining the space between my forehead and my hair. I'm allowing that to be ambiguous. There's some hair coming out of the bun and around my face, which I think creates a really soft and dramatic look. What do you think? I don't know if dramatic's the word, just a soft and cinematic. Like, I don't know. I know a lot of girls who like all their hair pulled back, but I think curly hair looks pretty when it's draping around the face. Adjust the chin and jaw. And again, looking at how much space is between the neck, the shawl, or the scarf. Building on to the structure that I've already established, shading it as I go. Mix your black and white together to create various tones of gray. And I'm realizing this portion of the painting I've neglected. In our minds, we tend to deem certain parts of the painting more important than other parts of the painting, which this isn't the case. Every part of the painting is equally important. The wall behind you is just as important as the curl, as the skin, as the dimple, as the pimple, which I do have a pimple. But it's okay, because I'm a human. Humans get pimples. Right? Or am I wrong about that? Don't humans get pimples? Alright. In here, it's a bit ambiguous what's going on. If you're not sure what's going on in the painting or in the image you're looking at, paint it in a way that shows that you're not sure. You know, not everything has to be really clear and defined. And then when you add more information into your painting as you go, that portion of the painting that you're not so sure about will likely resolve. And you'll likely realize, oh, that's what it needed. But you have to work on everything around what you think it is that you're working on. Here's a little bit of the skin peeking out, which it kind of looks like everything else. So I'm going to separate it with more of a line for now. Just so that I can keep straight in my mind what's what. making the shoulder more defined. Here, just creating a shape and blending that in. With the rest of the arm. Making sure I'm focused on the lower portion of the painting just as much as I am the face. The shoulder curves away from me, so I'm softening that line, creating a shadow. Let's work on the face. I'm going to work on the nose. Here is the bottom part of the nose that kind of curls under. It's going to be a little bit darker under there than above the nose, depending on the angle of the face. This angle tends to be a bit challenging because the face is kind of turned away and the nose is creating this upturned look. So that's why you can't think of learning how to paint as learning how to paint symbols. Like, we all know how to paint the symbol of a nose or a symbol that looks like the eye. But to learn how to draw and paint, you have to go beyond that, just in case. Because the symbol, knowing how to do a caricature of that thing, or say anime painting, it's like anime drawing, it's all symbol. Like, here's the symbol you use for the mouth when it's talking. It looks like this. It looks like a sideways D or an upside down D. When it's closed, it looks like, two lines. Those are symbols. That's not actually drawing. Sorry. If you know how to draw and paint, you see things as they are, or at least your interpretation of it as it is. So look beyond what you think you know. Draw what you see, not what you know. That's what my old art teacher used to always tell me. Draw what you see, not what you know. We all know noses look a certain way, but you have to draw what you see for it to look like it's supposed to, not what you know. Words of wisdom. Okay. It almost looks like the hair is falling over the face a little bit more than what I have on here. There's a curl that kind of comes here below the jaw. And then my ear comes out here. And I'm using heavy texture paint. Heavy texture paint is fun for me. I totally understand if you want everything to be smooth, but I love celebrating the medium of paint. And acrylic paint, people think it's flat. It doesn't have to be flat. Try Gaffrey paint. This is not sponsored. This is just true. It's thick. And even if you use a cheap paint with it, which I will be doing, it will add texture, which will make your painting look, in my opinion, 10 times better. So, Gaffrey paint, Gaffrey art materials, highly recommend. The heavy texture. Let's create a little bit of an indication of the curling that happens within the ear. You don't have to make it fully thought out at the moment, but I want to make sure that there's room for all the hair that is around my face as well as the ear. I'm going to go back to creating some of the lines on the door behind my face to make sure that everything is lining up correctly, painting side to side so that I get the sense visually that the wall is flat behind me. A little too dark. It's okay. Just add a little bit of white. And maybe just use that to spread across the canvas. You know those old school doors that have the rectangles in them? That's the kind of door I have. So that's what I'm painting at this point. And this is a bit dark. Taking my white to shift it a little bit. Think of it as a sculpture. It's a three-dimensional sculpture. And you add more paint and you sculpt it as you go. Think if you're working with clay, you don't expect it to look finished right away. You expect it to take time to add and to take away. That's what you gotta do with your paintings. All right, that's good for now. I'm gonna work on this side of the face and I'm just gonna work on creating the light structure and making it more accurate to reality. You see how I'm kind of bouncing around? That's because as you paint one thing, it kind of anchors in something else. So here's one eye. Let's make sure that that's lined up. Here's the nose. Here's the shadow behind the nose. The eye is somewhere in there. It's not super visible where the eye is because it's hidden in the shadow. So I'm just gonna paint what I see. There's a soft shadow happening here. And then this connects to the mouth. create some definition on the lips, actually. My next step is to add more white to my paint palette. So just making some ASMR noises for you. Here, I'll show you how this works. Nice. You cut a hole at the end of the bag and you squeeze it out. And then you clip it on to keep everything dry. Okay. It's getting there. Okay. Using my white and gray and water. Look, there's a little light spot on my cheek behind my nose. We're gonna plot that in. Not exactly sure where it is, but it's better to put something on your canvas and to adjust it than it is to feel like, oh, you can't do anything, because you have to have something to respond to. And if you can embrace the fact that your entire painting process is a series of adjustments, you're going to be better off. All right, here is the nose, and I have a little nose ring, which either you love or you hate. I will say a lot of my YouTube comments are like, you would look so much better without your nose ring. I've gotten comments like that since day one, and I went through a phase where I actually took out my nose ring and I had it out for like 2 years, and then I pierced it again because I was like, I like it. So if you're a girly or a guy and you're not sure if you should get that piercing, the answer is yes, because it's you who you need to dress for and look good for. Nobody else. Everyone else can just suck it. So, all right. The nose is a little bit gray right here. I'm using washes, which means I'm mixing my paint with water, which really helps just make everything come together. Like, you can allow the bottom layers to show through. It's a little bit more non-committal, and then you build up thicker layers as you go. With acrylic paint, this is possible. With oil paint, you can't do that. Oil paint is strictly thin to thick, but we're using acrylic, even though I actually know how to use oil paint. I started with oil paint. I've taken oil paint lessons ever since I was a kid, and then I learned with oil paint in college, and then I moved to acrylic. Actually, that painting behind me, the colorful gourds, that's all oil. Even though it's super colorful, it's oil. So, and the one below it I actually painted in high school, or actually right when I graduated high school. But yeah, maybe I'll show you all my artwork and talk about my art in another video. Would you like that? Do you want me to deep dive on my art? Explain everything? Well, I would be happy to. Okay. Creating a little bit more of a shadow. actually underneath where it would normally be shadowed, like by the nostril, it's brighter because my head is tilted. So up above it's like kind of nuanced. So right above my nose, it's a little bit darker. And you're just gonna try to match the shades in your reference. Like you see how on my face this side's brighter than this side. That's what we're doing, and we're looking up close. You see how under here it's darker because it's curved under, but it's still lighter on this side because that's where the light is. And again, drawing from live observation, which is looking in the mirror, can be a good idea too. Okay. So connecting the nose with the cheek. And then I'm going to add highlights after that. But let's connect all of this because this is the last place where there's canvas really showing through. Sometimes you have to flatten everything, kind of bring it all to one plain field, and then pull out the darks and the lights. I'm going to zoom into my reference. If you print out your reference photo, you can look up closely, but if it's on a computer screen or a phone, just zoom in when you need to see the detail. I wouldn't say one is necessarily better than the other. I will probably end up printing this out later so I can look at it closer. Okay. Oh yeah, the nose. I was like, what am I working on? Working on the nose. Okay, bring that shadow back in. Not as quite of a harsh line. Sometimes it feels like with the white that it's clear. It's kind of the quality of the paint, but I think that happens with various colors. Like we're going to add a highlight right here that's going to create some structure. There's a highlight here underneath the eye where the light is really hitting the face. It's getting there. And here. And here. Once you add some highlights, you can see other highlights that match that shade. And, it's kind of like that process throughout the entire painting. Like I said, one part of the painting will inform the other. the hair is kind of connected to this portion of the pattern. I want to make sure that that's in the right spot, because that might be crucial for some other part of the painting, because you line it up and you think of it on a grid, and you think of it like, where does this point line up to the chin? And then you can bring the chin or bring things up or down or adjust them as you go. Okay, so I told my friend I was recording, and he said he could vacuum later. So I'm gonna keep going. And I found I studied chai with coconut milk in my studio. I'm not sure if this is from the other day, but it still tastes good. And that might be disgusting, but whatever. Okay, let's keep going. This is looking really, really good. It's definitely getting there, and it's progressing how I thought I wanted it to. Let's lock in some of these solid shapes. See how I'm allowing the white to I'm allowing some of the gray from underneath the white to show through. And this is my idea of an underpainting, which some people do it differently. This tends to work for me. Finding the value structure and then adding color. Highlight the lips a little bit. Let's create some more, like a little bit more of a solid shadow here on the other side of her face. And then I'm gonna, after I create the shadow, I'm adding white into the shadow. Because if you look closely, there are highlights within the shadow. They may not be as dramatic as what I'm doing right now, but it's enough for me to know that it's there. Look, you sometimes have to overcorrect and then cut back into it with your paint to solidify your decision. Right now I'm really kind of mixing the paint on to the canvas. And there's a little highlight here where my mouth kind of curves. I've never tweaked my face or my body in any way. And these are some of the things I think about whenever I'm doing a self-portrait. But like my in here kind of curls under. And when you get a lip filler, it takes that aspect away. A lot of people try to remove that from their mouth. But I still have that because I've never done anything, so I'm going to add that. Where my mouth kind of curls under a little bit. And the corner of my mouth should line up to where my pupil is. My mouth is slightly open. Like I said, if you're not sure where everything goes, if there's not a clear outline, then draw it unclear. It doesn't need to be super crisp and defined all throughout the painting. In fact, if you have some aspects of the painting that are a little bit crisp, some aspects of the painting that are less defined, that can be more intriguing. Creating a little shadow on the philtrum, which connects the space between the mouth and the nose. And again, I'm using a large brush, considering it's pretty large. When I actually refine the details towards the end of the painting, I'll use a smaller brush so I can really get into those crevices, but right now I'm keeping things pretty open and a little bit less defined because we're still figuring out where everything goes. Mixing up the right shade of gray. There's I want to make sure that my lips are relatively in the right spot. Now kind of indicating the bottom lip. Working on the bottom lip a little bit. And painting in between the lips in here is a good idea. Okay. My chin is a little bit out like this, so it curves under. Do you see how the shadows kind of curve under? And there's highlights, but there's shadows. We're gonna try to capture that. At least enough to where it looks somewhat correct. Softer shadow. And there's gonna be a shadow under the mouth. I'm looking to see if the nose and the mouth lined up. For instance, if you look here, where does that line up on the mouth? I feel like that the mouth is probably a lot smaller on the painting than what it needs to be. Adding a little bit of a highlight on the rim, and I'm actually gonna add the highlights in the eyes just to kind of anchor in their position, and they might change. Creating a little bit more clarity around the pupil. See how when you add everything else in, you can kind of start figuring out where things go. Let me just flip this really quick. I just want to take a peek at it. I think it's a good thing I flipped it. Let's annihilate it a little bit and try to reposition some of the different parts of the painting. It seems like in here it's a little bit squished. I want to make sure that there's the right amount of space in here. I feel like the eye isn't quite right. I think the mouth needs to be moved out a little bit. This direction. I had a feeling it was getting a little small. And I want to make sure that the shadows line up correctly. And I can tell that my chin is actually bigger than this. Okay, it's getting better. You see how painting in between things can help. My nose looks a bit piggish. Let's curve it a little bit in here. And got a little light in here, just kind of repositioning the eye, moving it a little bit. Which I said earlier, you gotta do that the whole way through your painting. Add a little bit of light above the eye on this side. Let's create a little highlight in here. Alright, since I repositioned the eye, I need to move the eyelid up a little bit more. And reposition the white around the eye. Adding a little bit of a highlight here, making it softer. And again, it's okay if it doesn't look perfect. This is why we're working out where everything goes before we develop anything too far. Moving the eyebrow up. Now I have a scar in my eyebrow because I fell into a fish tank whenever I was a little kid. I don't know if you can see it. Hang on. Do you see it here? It's my scar. It's kind of sexy, right? Okay. Let's make it to where the forehead is kind of shaded back here, where it connects to the hair. But my forehead is a little bit bigger. Yeah. And it's a little bit like, where does the forehead start and stop? That's good. We want that. We're not sure at this point. Yeah, we're not sure at this point where it starts and stops, so we're keeping it open. Focus a little bit of energy back on the nose. Shifting the shadow a little bit. We're getting there. Now I'm obviously wearing makeup now, and I'm also wearing makeup in the reference image, so I'm going to go ahead and add some of that darkness around my eye. I love a good smoky eye moment, and that's what I'm wearing in this. Yeah, my mouth is still a little bit beaky looking. It just doesn't feel as full as it should, so I'm gonna expand it. Squinting my eyes when I'm looking at my reference, so I can really see the light structure. Squinting your eyes blurs out the unnecessary detail and forces you to see the general shapes. I overcorrected the nose, but that's good so that you can open it back up. Feeling out this shape above the nose or above the nostril, which is the tip of my nose, and putting a little highlight right there so you can see it's coming out. Does it look a bit fucked up? Yes. Are we working on it? Yes. The tricky part is getting the right angle to happen. And it's like, one thing that I'm noticing is, okay, so here is the bottom of my eye. Here's like some of that space. It's a dark, dark gray. It's not quite black. I'm going to redefine some of that. And open that up a little bit. Let's create more width on the jaw and width in the mouth. In here, it should be a bit softer. There. Creating a more defined opening. A little bit of an indication of teeth back there. I can work on it more later. I have some softness like around the corners of my mouth. So just making sure I count for that. Even if it's a little bit overdone right now. Alright, you see how I'm realizing, oh, there's a negative space here that is going to inform the shape of my face. So I'm going to carve out some of that negative space. It's looking really good, actually. And carving out some negative space between the hair as well. Once again, looking at the lines behind everything. And let's address the ear again, because it's like the ear should line up just right below the eyebrow. I have kind of big ears. See? See how they kind of stick out? And I look different with my hair pulled back too, so there is that. Just gonna plot out a little bit more accurately where the ear is. Ears are important. Go back to the nose. I want to get the nose nose, mouth, philtrum area situated before I call it a day. And then whenever I come back, I can add color. So it's going to be really, really good. Shading that. There is some light under my lip. And this should kind of go in a little bit. And honestly, all of that should kind of go in. Like, my face is definitely coming out too far on this end. But I don't want to snatch it in too far yet, because I'm just going to keep it open and ambiguous for now, and then we'll decide what to keep and what to leave away, what not to keep in that area. Finding that light spot. Creating a little bit of a soft shadow that comes in from the eye and kind of connects to the nose. And then blending that, taking more black, going back and forth between black and white to really create those soft shadows. I feel like that the nose actually kind of comes up just maybe just a little bit more. And the eye is somewhere in there, but it's in the shadow. And I'm leaving it ambiguous for now. I actually think this is a really, really good start. Let me take a picture. Is it perfect? No, but this should be able to show you that it doesn't have to be perfect to be a really good start. What I will say is, off the top of my head, maybe making this lip a little bit less big and making the jaw a little bit bigger, because I do have a pretty strong jaw. Let me see. Something like that, maybe. That's closer to what I'm going for. Yeah. Okay. We're getting there. I think this is a really solid start to a really solid painting. Of course, I could work on it for a lot longer, but I wanted us to focus on just starting the painting and what it takes to start a portrait. I would say your next step is to sleep on it, come back to it, and maybe refine it just a little bit more with the black and white. And then whenever I come back to work on this painting, we're going to add color, and we're going to talk about color theory, and it's going to be awesome. So I want to say thank you for being here. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I hope you were relaxed along the way. This is what it is so far. If you liked this video, be sure to let someone you care about know. And yeah, you can also like and subscribe. That will help me out so much. Thanks again for watching me create this self-portrait. Again, it's not done. This is just the beginning. I'm excited to bring you along the way to develop it further. I hope you sleep tight. I hope you don't let the bed bugs bite. And I will see you in my next video.